And hello, everybody. Welcome to our Zooming with our zoomologist of Zoomery, Patrick.
Zoom, zoom, zoom.
And we're here, and Luke is back with us, and on the satellite of love, obviously, from the picture. Hello. And we burned through all our good conversation before we went on the air, so we're just going to talk about the weather for 2 hours, probably. But this is Thanksgiving week. We don't usually do holidays, but they sound good. So this is our Thanksgiving special. And what we're going to talk about sounds like that thing, the Horn of Plenty Cornucopia thing, the topics. And we're very thrilled to have my friend from college, Buck Harding, all the way from Binghamton. Hey, Buck.
How you doing, Rob?
Good.
It's been only about like 31 years, I think.
Older than I am.
Yeah.
But question I have to ask immediately. This has been since reading Ray Davies' book. He claims the best milkshakes in America are in Binghamton, New York. Is it true?
Well, I don't know, man. You'd have to ask my wife because I'm always picking them up, but I'm usually going through a McDonald's drive-through or whatever. My guess is that the place where he had his best milkshake is probably long since closed and replaced by something else.
Yeah, it was probably like some ice cream place, like some local ice cream place. I'm
trying to recollect because I remember that story, and I'm not sure if. I can't remember the actual. It might have been a diner downtown, I would imagine. Which, in theory, it could still be down here. Who knows?
It's one of those urban lores. People should go look for it, try to see if they could find it.
It is.
I think that would be cool.
In fact, I was at the theater where I last saw Ray Davis at the Forum. I was there the other night, so that was kind of fun.
Well, I
caught that.
Go on.
Yeah, that Buddy Holly show.
Oh.
So here we are standing in line. I'm with a niece of mine, and the line's going by, but we didn't have our tickets. Yeah, because some other members of our family had tickets, and this guy's kind of swimming upstream of the line, and he's got like jeans on, and he's got a white shirt and like the little kind of stuff, and he's got glasses. You folks enjoy the show, and then I see him duck around the back alley to go to the back of the theater, and because I wasn't standing in line, I wasn't going to lose my place. I kind of stick my head around and looked out. I said, "That looks like Buddy Holly," and he just kind of turned around and gave me one of those. But I tell you, it was a great show.
The Ray's show at the Trout in Buffalo is probably be on the top 5 of my favorite shows of the decade. He was just incredible. He even balanced the Guinness on his head.
Really? Wow.
See, it was one of the best shows. And I hate those top 10 lists. What's your best? What everything else. But one thing we have to talk to a little bit for our friend Mark Rialdi because his mom passed away this week. I said we talk a little about our days at Fisher. What is your impression of Fisher? And for you two, if you want to chime in a little about college or high school and what you would consider, that would be just so you can, because you have no idea what our experiences at Fisher were. Neither do we for the most part.
So you were class of 90 as well, right?
Oh, a little before my time, but let's just say I was.
Okay, let's just say for argument's sake that you were. I loved Fisher. It was great. It was half the size that it is now. In fact, I went up and replaced my 30-year-old T-shirt this June, and I was flabbergasted. As a matter of fact, I got turned around a bit and didn't know where the hell I was going.
I went to go see Dr. Bain. I went on campus to go just see Dr. Bain. There's some tickets I had to get up there. I said the place went on steroids.
Yeah.
I got lost, and then I looked like the weird old guy going around there asking like the students, "Oh, where's this? Where's this?"
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the last time before this past year that I went to the bookstore, but I just kind of stood down there in front of the library and just kind of looked around at this panorama. And then you go where that old lighthouse used to be, and there's like all these huge dorms, and it's like you're in an entirely different universe.
Well, I went on. We actually have Fred Dodolo. He teaches there, and Mike Guzik. They've done shows, and they might do a Zoom. But I went on there to sort of advise the history students and just talk about careers and stuff. And he told me it was Basil Hall. I just met him at his office, but we went to the cafeteria. There's a cafeteria down there now. The building there. There's one there. It's like, okay, everything grows up and changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. I'm trying to think. So we had a reunion. God, what's the reunion we played? Was it 10 years ago already? It might have been. Holy cow. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
we all told me about that, but I was like doing something, and I'm weird about reunions, even if I enjoyed my time.
Oh no, I did it right. I booked the gig and played it and made a couple bucks. Yeah.
I get something out of it.
That's the way. But
Fisher altered the course of my life, you know. I mean,
you went to Africa, didn't you?
I did, and it was because I went to Fisher. Yeah.
Did you
and
feel
I
the
thought,
rays down there?
Wow.
Did you taste the rains down in Africa?
No. I didn't bust. Actually, I was there during a
down
drought.
in Africa.
I saw some rain, but I was there during a drought season. It was actually pretty dry. And I had to walk like the back roads. And if you saw a vehicle coming, you had to like run up into the field and kind of duck down a little bit because the plume of dust would just take over everything. But no, that was an interesting experience.
I thought that was like, I always call it a moment in time where it's like, I made some lasting friendships for life, and I'll never, we'll never get that time back, but it's like,
Hold on one
it's
second.
a moment in time.
Now, were you a McQuaid Jesuit guy?
No, I was Cardinal Mooney.
Cardinal Mooney. Okay.
Yeah, which is dead
All right.
too.
McQuaid's gone?
No,
McQuaid's
Mooney's gone. Mooney bought
Mooney's
it like
gone.
around 80, 89,
Well,
90.
I got to ask you about the most famous McQuaid alumnus that I can conjure to mind right now. You know who that is, right?
The Exorcist guy. Oh, no, I thought about the
No.
guy, the priest who was an exorcist. Who is this
Oh,
one?
We didn't get into that because he lived down in Scranton. I got some stories about that guy. No, this guy would be none other but John Velby, Dr. Dirty.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. He's playing here. He's playing here on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that tracks.
And he would
Was
actually
he playing
talk
on
about,
Thanksgiving?
he's playing, and actually he's always talked about McQuaid. He would ask about teachers there.
Did he? Did you ever see him?
Yeah.
I saw him once, like at this old, back road bar down here in Endicott. But my mother-in-law, God rest her soul, she passed away last year. She actually dated the priest from The Exorcist because my wife's from Scranton, and he used to rent out a penthouse apartment in downtown Scranton. He was a notorious drunk. Word on the street was that movie fucked him up so bad that he wasn't right. And so a lot of stories about him. I'm trying to think what's his name.
Father O'Malley.
Pardon?
Father
No,
O'Malley.
I'm trying to think of the actor's name, and my
The
wife.
real-
That was his name, wasn't it?
It was the.
He's got a son that's a famous actor that was in Sleepers too, who was Jason Patrick. And
Really?
so, what was the dad's
Oh,
name? though?
he's related to Jackie Gleason, I think. Jason Patrick. He's like his nephew or something.
Somebody's got to Google that. Who was?
I'm on the back end here.
We're checking it out. But you had some interest.
Oh,
Was
yeah,
it Miller?
Jason Miller.
Jason Miller. Thank
Okay,
you.
I was thinking
I
of.
knew it
I
was
was
on the
thinking
tip of my. Jason
Yeah.
Miller. Yeah.
He played. Okay, he played Father
Callous.
Damien.
Damien.
Baby, why you do this to me?
Why you do that
Why you do
way?
this to
Well,
me, baby?
I'll get the
Yeah.
one Fisher story out of the way. This is like Mark. We've told it many times. We had this party up in Basil, and we had complaints because of noise. So security came in to get us. Jim Vito grabbed the beer ball. We started running. We got chased across campus by the campus security, and they stopped us like security. But what happened was security actually went to high school with somebody, and they let us go. And we strung it out Murphy Hall in the bushes and just restarted. But that was like a legendary story the next week.
I know the statute of limitations is up on all this kind of stuff, but I'm still taking the fifth, man. I'm not even going there.
I went to see
dorm did you live in?
Stephen Lynch. I didn't live in one. I was a commuter. A lot of people thought I lived on campus because they'd find me passed out there a lot. And I'd be there, but I didn't live on campus. But
Right.
the thing was, like, it's like one of those weird things. I went to go see Stephen Lynch, like, say about like over 5 years ago. The security guard who busted us was still there. We were like drinking, like we were mixing vodka with Coke in the bathroom before the show. And I'm thinking, he's still waiting to get me. It would be like a bad comedy with Will Ferrell.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I'll tell you. Well, it's funny because you'd get your party busted up, and the RAs would come in, and there's a beer ball in there, and they'd be scared. They'd be going around taking everybody's name, and so everybody in the room would be. Well, it's like I'll just say, not to incriminate, but no, you know what? God rest his soul. My buddy Dave Dunn, who was my roommate, who passed away a couple of years ago. So they'd come in, the RAs, to bust the party. And they'd say, all right, what's your name? And I'd say, My name's Doug Hard, who was my roommate who I lived with like a half a semester. and my buddy Dave would be next to me. No, that's not true. He's lying to you. His name is Mark Harding. What's your name? And he says somebody else's name that's not his name.
Luke and I can relate to a lot of this stuff because we worked at a bar together. And actually, last night I was texting some of my less glorious adventures to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I had a great time up in Fisher. So I lived on Haffey 2 for 1 year, Haffey 3 for another year, and then I lived on the corner of. Well, I've lived next to the Wilson Farms, on the corner of Monroe and Laburnum Crescent, right there by 490.
Oh yeah.
We had a first floor apartment there with another Rochesterian, an East Rochesterian, Pete Hamilton. Was our other roommate. Did you know Pete?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I remember like when Rialdi lived on Harvard Street and they found me passed out on the porch after senior week. And I guess I had icicles coming off me.
Well, you pass out everywhere, don't you?
He is passed out everywhere.
Where have you not passed out? That might be a shorter Zoom today.
So you had some besides we're going to talk. We obviously talk about music and stuff, but Luke, if you want to toss in a topic too, it's a free for all. It's the Thanksgiving thing.
Yeah. Enough Fisher stuff. I think we've dropped.
We just wanted to do a little. I promised Mark we're
going to be pretty upset with us. What's that?
I promised Mark we'd say a little bit about Fisher since
that's
Rialdi. So we did.
That's all right.
So Luke, do you have anything you want to talk about?
Oof, boy, do I ever. I mean, with this group.
Yeah.
What's there not to talk about? I don't know.
You have sent me some really interesting ones like prostate cancer.
As a topic?
Hey, Luke, since we're meeting,
that's what you're jumping to. Huh?
Why don't we do a little bio stuff here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sure, go on.
Okay.
Yeah,
Let's start like 1990 and we'll go from there. What year were you born, Luke?
81.
81.
So,
Okay, so you're 9 years old in 1990. Go. Who
Yeah.
are you? Where are you from?
Oh man. Greece, New York.
Greece. All right.
Just
Greece Chili. Right?
Greece Chili Gate. No, more towards the gates. Towards the gates area. Honestly, all I did as a kid was just play outside. I feel like Rob and I talked about this before, probably not even on a podcast, just how kids just stare into the computer all day long. Like my whole life was outside, just outside till 11 p.m. and then come back, go to school. And so honestly, like when I think about being a kid, it was literally don't get in trouble. Because that's all it was just get in trouble. Play Ghosts in the Graveyard in other people's yard. You know what I mean? Like you'd be playing Ghosts in the Graveyard around like
that's old school.
You're right, giant houses. You'd be peeking in windows like, what is this family doing? Oh, this family's watching Tales from the Crypt or so. You know what I mean? Like it was always like something stupid going on. You know what I mean? And then you had like, I'm 9 years old. There's a bunch of kids that are like 15, 16 doing the same thing and the neighborhood's over. Your group clashes with their group and then you got to run. You know what I mean? It's literally just
rumbles. We used to call them rumbles.
On the go all the time, man. Like I missed that. Now kids don't play.
You know what fascinates me about that? Because you mentioned the Manhunt. We used a whole city block down here.
Oh, Manhunt, yes.
Really close to downtown. And not a single one of us in all the years we did it ever got charged with criminal trespass or or burglary or
anything like that.
Burglary or anything.
Yeah, no.
And nobody even called the cops, really.
People would threaten it. They would go slam the windows or close the curtains. Get out of here. But
yeah,
you're right.
We had one neighbor. We had like a creek going through the neighborhood, and my dad would say, like, if he sees you by the creek, sometimes he might say something. But he said just because he cares, he doesn't want anybody to drown or anything.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
there's always that guy offering the 2 cents and the advice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what this does remind me of? Speaking of like always being outside, I think about this a lot. I never talk about it with people because I always forget. But it's crazy how MTV used to show music videos, right? But it's even crazier that Michael Jackson used to pay Fox to play his music videos at like the height of a Sunday night during The Simpsons or at the very end of The Simpsons. And you would watch his music video and it would be like a 12-minute video and then a 3-minute song. And that was like the highlight of like every 6 months or like every 4 months or something like that. I kind of missed that. Like the fact that right now, Mark, you could release a music video. I could watch it right now, and in 2.5 minutes, be done with it, and be like, all right, well, now what? And then wait. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that like
it's kind of funny because as a musician, I've been like, I'm flabbergasted. You put this into context. Like my oldest nephew is your age, okay, 1981. So I remember 1981. I was a young teenager, okay, but I remember MTV coming out, and that was, and childhood very similar as far as, I grew up in this neighborhood where there are a bunch of families with a bunch of kids. Like I'm number 7 of 8 kids, and it's always like the older kids, and you just and you were out there, and it was almost like this latchkey existence. And you're exactly correct. Just don't get in trouble and always be looking over your shoulder, and guys that got caught up and stuff reacted in one of two ways. They'd either put their head down and say, yep, you got me, or they'd argue back and like, what? What are you talking about? I didn't do anything.
Or he did
with a severed head in their hand. I didn't do it.
We had bicycle thieves like in our neighborhood. I guess like some kid was stealing them, and like he would just take them apart and sell the parts. That was like the big mistake.
Yeah. So look, you go from that to where it's like you're watching this on TV. Now, when I came back from Kenya, there's another fella from Rochester as well. His name was Bill Sullivan. He went over to Africa with me, and we went to Fisher, and we rented one of the rooms in the media department, and we had a reel-to-reel. We actually did a synchronized slide because we actually had slides. Okay. This is all before digital photography.
Yeah.
So it was, that was actually a format to actually do that. So you kind of had to sync the music with like your slideshow, and we did that presentation at Fisher. During COVID, like I was doing like live shows, and I got kind of nutty with it because here I am. I'm used to the jobs that I've done in the community. I'm out in the community. I'm driving around. I'm going everywhere. And then all of a sudden I'm like stuck looking out my back window at a computer. I'm losing my mind. I moonlight and do gigs. And I'm like, I'm not doing that anymore. So one day I decided, what the heck? I'm doing all requests. And people were sending me in stuff. I was turning nothing down. And I'm talking about Mahanga Hala Sail by Pete Seeger and stuff like that. Songs I'd never heard before. Yeah. And a lot of them ended up being absolute shit shows, but it was all for like entertainment purposes only. And some of the stuff was okay. But just the fact that you go from, we had to do that just to produce a slideshow.
Right.
And like, God, if I had the technology that we have now when I was in Africa, the footage that I would have having gone on a 2-week safari, I had like a little camera like this, and my buddy Bill had a nice camera, but even still, it was film, and it just you couldn't really properly transfer it to a vivid format. No, it's frustrating.
Yeah, because the way your memory remembers it, and then the way that you look at your little Polaroids or whatever, you're like, this doesn't do it justice. You don't even want to show those people those pictures. But yeah, it is pretty crazy how you had to. I mean, even just take it, I don't know, 15 years forward from when you were syncing up the audio and the video,
duplicating video.
It was just the
it was that
reels.
Thing
it was just reels. Oh, okay. That's even worse.
Yeah. The slides. Yeah, I'm telling you.
I used to dabble in duplicating music, and it wasn't just like a burner. It was like a $600 piece of music that it was like a $1,200 piece of machinery that you had to play in real time and adjust the, you know what I mean? Like if you gave me a CD or a cassette and then wanted it on another cassette or if you wanted it on a CD, I had to do everything by hand. And so 81 minutes later, you had a CD, and people were just like, oh, that's cool. Now I can literally send you an MP3 on my phone. And it's just crazy that like you can make a mixtape on your phone. There's apps to do that. I can't believe I used to sit in front of a Philips machine and adjust all the levels and whatever. And then the thing was, if I accidentally like sneezed and my hand went like this to the thing, 50 minutes into that mixtape, you had to throw it away and start again.
What about, I got something better than that. Remember the day when you would have a radio show where you take your cassette player and put it up next to the record player speaker and make you, those were the early mixtapes.
We thought that was awesome. And then the CD burners were the best. And now it's like ridiculous. Now I forgot what app it is.
And we learned what an aux channel was, and we were like, oh my God, we can plug this right into the tape recorder.
Yes. And now you don't know a song at a grocery store, and you hold up, I forgot what the Shazam, and it's like, oh, this is blah 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 blah. It's like, how crazy is that? Like,
yeah, I was in a 2-man acoustic thing for years, and we had quite a following down here, but a lot of it was just a lot of cover tune type stuff. But we kind of got into some recording, but you know, and the technology was pretty decent. You get one of those Fostech digital type things. I wasn't particularly good at it. My partner at the time was much better at doing it, but it was like sitting down and laying down tracks. And there was a lot of work to that and all that, but it's like, then you finally get your end product and you burn that CD. Now it's really cool. And now it's like, I can take out my phone, and if I want to do a tune, I can record it like I'm doing right now. I have a Pixel 2. Camera's decent. Audio's okay. I'm not hooked up to any mic or anything right here. You know, and it's like, holy crap, this thing is like that. Is like
That's
that
cool.
big.
It's Steven Soderbergh making movies on an iPhone, you know, and they're being released in movie theaters. You know, it's crazy.
Or you think like what we're doing right now, like back in the day, we would have like the radio station. Anybody who's got some of the equipment can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I'm not particularly tech savvy. You know, I was a communications.
That's why I'm over here.
No, I was a communications journalism major at Fisher, and as a matter of fact, I did an internship at TCI or something like that. One of the studios. It didn't go over too well. I think my nickname was like Lucky Eddie at the time, because I was like all thumbs, and these guys are, you know, whatever the case may have been. But I'm like, I guess that's not for me, because I was just really clumsy with the equipment I still have, because I kind of came more from the, you know, talent end of things as far as performance and all that kind of stuff. So I wasn't particularly.
Well, you always said the eclectic taste, because I mean, memory fades over. But I remember like your shows, you would pull stuff out like Loudon Wainwright's "Dead Skunk in the Road."
Yeah, right.
Stuff that. Holy shit! I remember the right song, but you would do stuff.
I'm still the same way. You know,
would do stuff that's eclectic that people like. I would say now, sometimes, despite myself, I become a music snob on the local scene here, where you know we're like a part of like a little interlocking family of all the local.
Yeah.
And we're sort of like.
You find that, and I totally get that, especially like coming. I mean, I've been playing guitar since I was in like maybe second grade, and it was always like and the evolution of that for me is because I'm more like a singer and a strummer kind of guy, because it was like I really like singing. And so that's kind of like but you're like, oh no, you got to be it all. You got to be the lead guy. You got to do this. But it was interesting. I was listening to one of your other podcasts where, and I forget the name of the band, but they were kind of talking about, you know, that play off of each other and stuff like that. It's like, well, no, if you can do it all, then what the hell's the point in having a band? You know, that's why you have it. And so you kind of get that kind of vibe, but to me, it's that you kind of come to that self-discovery of, well, this is just so I can accompany myself adequately so that, you know, I can sing. And boy, then when you hook up with these other guys, like the guys I play with now, we're called the Park Avenue Revue. And these guys are like 10 years older than I am. And it's like, I always thought it'd be really nice to have a good lead guitar guy that, you know, and he likes to sing. They like to sing a little bit of backgrounds, but like their thing is, because you find a lot of competition, I guess, is what you're saying, among musicians. What I like to see, and we got a nice community down here. We have a lot of open mic nights, and this one guy just started one, and he's really well accomplished. Like he works in one of the local gear shops at McNeil Music down here on the Vessel Parkway, and he's like, he's putting up his rules for stuff, and it's like, look, this isn't a competition, don't come up if you're completely loaded and they're going to be falling all over. But, you know, just like your basic rules. But I think when you're young, there's a little bit more of that competitiveness to it. And then as you get older and mellow, I think the sooner you learn, like, hey, you know what? It's time to back off. It's like that lead guitarist that you play with. It's like, hey, he's really good, but like he doesn't stop playing his lead during the body of the song. And it's just like, it's the guy that when you're playing with him, he's always just turning up a little bit, and then you got to turn up, and then before you know it, people's ears are bleeding. They got to get out of the place. You know,
it's like an ego thing. It's like a young and hungry, but also like an ego thing. But also, it's like they don't have the experience to know like time to back off or read the room.
Absolutely,
read the room type deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you know how I learned all that stuff? By trial and error, because Yeah. I mean, when I started out playing, I had a crate amp that was pretty decent with a mic that I plugged in.
I actually remember the crate amp.
Actually, I didn't get that until I was down here. I don't know what equipment we were using up there, but it was not mine. But when I got down here, I was working second shift for years, and I hadn't played out for years. And then I started playing the local bars by myself. And then I kind of, ran into some guys. I ended up in this acoustic duo, and we both just played acoustics, but it was one of those competitive kind of things, but in a good way.
Like you fed off each other.
We haven't had a following like that since we split. We were together for like over a decade, and it ended under dramatic circumstances, which I will not get into. But it was like there was almost that competitive like chemistry there, almost like a one-upmanship, because we both kind of pretty much did the same thing, and we were doing like Simon and Garfunkel harmonies and stuff like that. So it's kind of like, it's one of these things that you work out. But now I'm in like a three-piece where, you've got a bass player and you got this guitar player. His name's Tom Biller. Just incredible. He knows when to come forward, when to back off, when to just, he's just one of those real pros, no ego, and it's interesting, even down here, we've got a bunch of guys that are in a couple different bands. I just do some solo stuff, and then I'm in like one band, but like my bass players it was in like 3 bands at one point, that, our guitar players in other band, like people, it's kind of like swingers, and it's fun and it's cool because I think everybody's of an age and stage where it's more of an avocation as opposed to a vocation. People aren't out there, trying to make a living, and they've gotten to the point where it's like, hey, I'm not taking another crack at Nashville or anything like that. I'm content, that you're able to play in front of people, and there's some good supportive people, and that's it's kind of interesting. And listening to what you guys are talking about is that it sounds like I always knew this about Rochester. I think Binghamton's just it's much smaller than Rochester, but like, you look at like East Ave and like that whole area, and just like what it's like a culture, there. Whereas Binghamton, maybe more of a blue collar kind of thing. Then you got the college town stuff, but you kind of get out into some of these bars and some of your, as you start getting out from the center of the city and even, different sides of town, you got your like neighborhood pubs, and they just want somebody coming in there and singing them songs that they can sing along to and that they know, and just have a good time and have a few drinks,
I was just about to ask you, since COVID and whatnot, and since Binghamton's smaller than Rochester, is there still a demand for live music, and do people still? It sounds like you're still doing a lot. So it sounds like
here's the thing, and this is what I found because we're just a 3-piece, and it's kind of strange because I just play acoustic. So we don't have a drummer. A lot of places don't accommodate that if it's a smaller. No. And I find that the percussive nature of the acoustic actually, and we got the bass, and you've got your guy on lead guitar. It works out. And if you wanted to throw a drummer in there, and actually I think we're hoping to get one. We're doing a benefit the day after Thanksgiving, a Black Friday thing that we've been doing forever. But the smaller venues, and I think it's hit them like the name of our band is called the Park Avenue Revue. And there's this bar called Nips, okay, which is on Park Avenue in Binghamton. And I think that was the first. Well, I played there consecutively every year since 2003, several times a year. And he hasn't had any bands in there since COVID. And that bar went from they had no music back in 2003. My wife actually talked the guy into giving us a chance in there. He has such a good time that it kind of there was a time that we were playing every other week, and it was just like, it was like the place to be, the thing to do, that kind of stuff. And then he started having other bands come in, and I've noticed in that time from when I started playing in that 2-man thing that things have really stepped up. It used to be you'd get like your full bands places. You didn't have a lot of these smaller things, but it seems like a lot of that's cropping up. And then with all the microbreweries and stuff like that are popping up all over the place. Yeah. And I think the call, as the COVID was winding down, the call was for, hey, they're even looking more for, a 1-person, 2-person thing as opposed to, and even to a lot. And I found it's like a nice little niche because I had a couple gigs this year. It was like, I just want you to come and do your thing because they don't want the full sound of, the other side. So you can do, so you have that little bit of versatility and stuff like that, you know? And you have options to do. And so a lot of the gigs so to answer your question more specifically, haven't played a lot of the bar gigs that we used to have, but played like Windsor Farmer Market, played
interesting.
Like they're little townships around here that have like the gazebos and stuff like that, where you bring your chair. They might have some concessions set up, and people might bring some, and it's just concert series night. So we did a couple of those. And those are great crowds to play for, really, because it's not like, when you're in a bar and you're just fighting for people's attention, and there's so many different kind of gigs to play,
Yeah, and
there's so many
I break it into like two types of friends. I have friends who are doing this professionally, and I've seen them when they started and they're doing really well, and other people who are doing well but doing it for fun. And it's just nice seeing people when they start out and then how their careers are taking off. Or it's just, let's have a good time. But I have to ask you, what the heck was the thing about that Little Shop of Horrors thing you acted in?
Oh, so no,
and here's
well, because in addition to like the singing and playing, I did theater at Fisher as well. I was part of the Fisher Players, right? I've probably done, between high school Fisher and community theater, I've probably done between 40 and 50 shows in the last, however many years. Let's say since 1985, I've probably done between 45 and 50 shows, different capacities. I remember we did like South Pacific, our senior year.
Oh, I remember that party at La Placa's house afterwards too.
Right. Yeah, so I did a lot of that stuff. And as a matter of fact, at one point, I actually went down to the city and did a little bit of a look-see to see if that's something that I wanted to do. Because, a lot of different parts. Actually, I was trying to think, because I was thinking about, what are we going to be talking about? And it's like, we get to resumes and stuff like that.
Well, Patrick could tell you a little about the theater community here because he's involved in it.
Yeah, I mean, not as much as before everything, but there's quite a bit. There's quite a bit here. There has been for a long time, but
and there is here, and what's cool is that I've seen a lot of it sprout up. Like some contemporaries and friends of mine, I've watched them go from, geez, it would be really nice if we could start this theater where they actually, I remember having a conversation with a guy in a bar where I used to play, but one of the first bars I ever played with, it was called Ramos. It was right across from the Crowley Milk Factory in Binghamton by the Rock Bottom Dam. And this guy comes in after some show we were doing, because I did some kind of community theater, and I'm talking to him and meeting him. He's like, I'm going to start a theater. I'm like, oh yeah, how many people do you target? Yeah, I'm going to do this, and they never do it. Well, he and some other friends of mine that from the theater community actually went and did it. They bought an old theater, I think it's from the early 1920s, in downtown Endicott, and it's now known as the Endicott Performing Arts Center. I think they've been going for like 20 years.
That's awesome.
And it was great. And I was part of their first show, which was a funny thing happened on the way to the Forum. And I played Marcus Lycus, the keeper of the House of Courtesans.
Nice.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we had some really good talk before this started. Luke, there's actually a connection between Bruce Lee and your family a little bit.
Yeah, we were.
A little bit. Yeah. So my father was heavy into martial arts. Pretty disappointed that I didn't grow up and get into it. But now that his body is aching, he's like thankful that I didn't. This poor man has like rotator cuff and arthritis, and his hands are just terrible. Like, I feel so bad for him. But he told me this story about him and I have to ask him, but it's either him and his sensei or his best friend who had a sensei. They would just train all day long. They would go on these long trips to these like conventions, like how people have basketball tournaments. They would have like martial arts tournaments. And he would tell me that like to prepare, they would go to the sand. They'd go to the beach, like I think Eastman Beach or whatever. Durand Eastman and that. And they would kneel down and they would just take their hands and just jam them straight into the sand. And I was like, you can't do that. At one point, I like went into the sand, like I just took a walk with the dog, and I like pretended to tie my shoe, and I just kind of tried doing it. Nothing. Like you hit sand. Like, it's gross. But my dad used to stick his whole hand in sand. And then I was like, well, what did you do in the winter? And he's like, we put buckets of sand in the garage, and we would just sit there and just stick our hands through the sand. And I was like, that's actually absolutely ridiculous. And he's like, you think that's good? Told me a story about how his best friend trained with Bruce Lee. Pretty insane. And it got brought up earlier today because we were talking about Bruce Lee versus Muhammad Ali, who would win. Pretty sure everybody here said
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah. That's where he flings him into the car, right?
Yeah.
And Brad Pitt's character is supposed to be Jean LaBelle, supposedly. Like I
think what I'm going to do is I'll watch that with my dad over the holidays, and I'll just gauge his reaction, because I'm pretty sure my dad, I'm not sure, I don't think he's met him, but he trained with people that trained under him. So my dad has stories about Bruce Lee that are secondhand, but it's not like through the grapevine. It's literally the guy that he trained with who saw this stuff happen. And I actually recently just saw a clip, and it was Bruce Lee sparring, and it's like very rare, and I think it's from like the rafters. I don't even think at first I thought it was CGI, but it's not. And Bruce Lee is so fast. I have so much respect for Muhammad Ali, and he's so powerful and so large, but I actually think from everything that my father told me, that Bruce Lee might actually win.
And it would depend on the rules
kind of scary.
And everything too, probably.
Yeah,
and all that stuff.
But
listen, I have no sense, eh? Get it? Come a little Canadian joke for you.
But we had a bunch of weird things to go on for tangents and stuff. You were mentioning, Mark, near-death experiences is one of your weird things you put down on the list.
Yeah, did you have one?
Yeah, when I dropped dead.
I was just about to say, wasn't that recent?
It was like in August. Yeah, it was like dead for like 13 minutes. Like the thing was, oh yeah, she pulled me back from paradise. I had my dragons, and I was happy. You ruined my life by bringing me back.
There's dragons in paradise. I can't wait to tell my wife.
But what happened? You know what? It was like almost like what happened was just, for a minute I was talking to friends. The next minute I just saw darkness, and it was fine. It was like being in sort of like a comfortable dream. Then I popped up in an ambulance, and they're like, "Well, he's back."
Did you hear them say that? Yeah. You heard them say, "Well, he's back."
Finally. I missed all the drama, the mouth to mouth, the shocking,
So, do you have a memory or recollection of what occurred between the time?
I've been told because social media, everybody knew. That's why I had to tell everybody. I guess like I was fine during the whole day. I just actually been, this is like a stereotype part of this story. I just been to the doctor, and everything checked out fine. I was at the cardiologist. I went for a long walk. My friend Megan was in town. They were playing a Dragonfly in Park. So I walked down there from East. I'm fine. Nothing's bothering me. My jaw, my chest pains.
Yeah, right.
Anything else. I go down. I'm talking to my friend Carl. I'm talking to a few other friends. Next minute, I wake up in an ambulance, and they say I was dead. And the doctor said, "Well, you're very, very lucky." So that was it. That's what I saw. I saw like darkness and everything else.
But what about the dragons? He's just teasing me with the damn dragons.
Yeah, what are they for?
Oh man.
I would have these. The thing was, from the anesthesia later on, I was having all these weird, like cinematic dreams. I started writing them down.
Super lucid, right?
Oh yeah, it's lucid dreams. They're the fun.
It's crazy.
Any thoughts on life after death? Anything like in terms of like? We actually got into some deep talks with Luke last time he was on. So, what do you think about these near-death experiences, or anyone?
Have you read about them or I like me? I'm like a YouTube junkie. I don't watch a lot of TV.
Yes,
I'm all over YouTube. So like if a topic enters my mind, it's like, I'm going to see what these people have to say and watch a couple of these videos and see what So I have now I've met some people that have claimed to have had them and actually seen all the visions and visuals and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I was kind of hoping that. Go ahead, Luke. But
I was just gonna say. So I do the same thing you do. I'm huge. Whenever somebody says something like, "Oh, I wonder what happens when," whatever, I go. Whenever I'm back at home, I go open up YouTube and I look that stuff up. So I've looked into that a lot, and a lot of these visions that people say, "Oh, I saw God," or "There was a light," or whatever. It's just your brain reacting to the oxygen. And I'm not saying there's nothing to shoot for. There's nothing to see out there, but it seems to just be that everyone has the same thing. It's kind of like the whole alien thing where, you know, the first fake aliens that they showed were gray with big eyes, and then all of a sudden people were having nightmares, and that's what they were seeing because that's whatever. I feel like that, you know, the first few people in movies and in media that were saying like there's a light and you're walking towards it and you could see a fence or whatever, everybody just hears that, and then I feel like that's what your brain just maybe makes you think. I'm not sure.
Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
No, go on. That's all. I never even saw that stuff.
No?
Well, it's interesting, Luke, and what I would recommend too. I think is it a neuro?
Yeah,
a neurosurgeon. Look, go on YouTube and look for neurosurgeon, an atheist neurosurgeon that had a near-death experience. It's insane because what he ends up talking about is, and this is a guy who knows the brain and its functions and stuff like that. And I don't know what actual episode or condition he came down with, but it was dire. It was very bad. And from his understanding as a neuroscientist of what was happening, he had no explanation whatsoever for what caused what was occurring in his brain and what he could remember, because there was no scientific, based upon his knowledge of the brain, there was no rational scientific reason as to why he was having the experience.
That's incredible.
It's sick.
I wrote it down. And
yeah, check it out, man.
And do you know where looking this up has taken me on YouTube down to have you ever heard of because once you start getting into this afterlife stuff and seeing your body, like you're like, you're above your body, you're having out of body experiences, whatever. YouTube takes you to a place of being reborn. Which at first I was like, what the heck is this? And then they show you videos. There was a whole series of kids in their previous lives where it's like a 5-year-old who can barely speak is watching like a World War II documentary with his grandfather. And he's like, oh, look, it's Petra. I used to fight with Petra in Baghdad or whatever. And they're like, what are you talking about? And the kid can identify a city on a map. He can say, oh, I was this guy and I had this big scar on my jaw or whatever. And they'll look through files and they'll find like a pilot. And he's like, yeah, that's my, that was me in a previous life. And there's no way that this kid should know where this city is, what this man's family is. You know what I mean? Like this kid isn't old enough to look up stuff on YouTube. So it
can't be any possibility that people were telling him what to say.
No.
Right. Any possibility he was being coached. These are actually unimpeachable YouTube videos.
Yeah, I actually watched. I know.
I'm being that guy.
No, you're being. I've actually watched the infographic show sometimes. Yeah. But the thing is, all I watch is the medieval tortures. They're like the worst ways to die, and they got all these tortures.
Oh yeah. Holy! Have you ever seen the museum?
There's a new video out on that. I saw that came up on my feed the other day. Like medieval torture devices. Yeah.
They keep unearthing new ones too, like the masks with the spikes in them and like these weird crazy things that they stick into you. Yeah.
They actually have a new one about snake pits, and the weird thing about snake pits, they think, but like the myth about Ragnar, and they know Ragnar existed because they know his sons existed, but they don't know tons about him. But the other one was some other guy, but they know about some other guy, and they think they might have existed. They might not, but then they have a story of one guy they threw in one. He lasted for like a week. He kept a journal and wrote stories while he was in it.
In the snake pit?
Yeah.
Now give me some background on Ragnar. I mean, I've heard the name, but
it's like a Viking life. If you've seen the TV show Vikings, the first half's about him. This is when the Vikings are coming over into England, and basically he was like sort of semi-myth. They know again, he's like one of those people like Robin Hood. They think he existed, or he might have been like an amalgamation of 4 people, but they know Ragnar existed because they know his sons existed. They talked about it.
There's a lot more actual written accounts of his sons, but Ragnar Lodbrok is the generally.
I'll have to check that out. I'm a quarter Swede, I got to check that shit out.
Yeah, no, me too.
And actually, a lot of it's fun. I like these like sort of like drama, what do you want to call them, historical fiction, when they incorporate real people with ones made up, and you try to go through like Floki, I guess, was real. He was like a shipbuilder, but like for Deadwood, I would try to discern the real ones from the fictional ones.
And the stories like. And that's a good example of, extrapolating bigger characters from stories. but you look up the real Seth Bullock and the real Al Swearingen.
Oh
and,
yeah.
you know,
Oh, that's one of my favorite. I had to rewatch that recently.
I
by
love
the
that
way.
show.
Did you see the movie?
Yeah.
Did you
Oh,
see
yeah.
the movie
Yeah,
finally?
yeah.
Yeah, no, Kristen Bell was actually in an episode when she was very young.
Yes, she was, and
She was.
yeah, she made
That's
it
what
very,
made me-
very, very.
Yeah, that
bad
was not a
at-
good. That was not a good end.
Oh
for-
man, yeah, it was.
Oh yeah,
like,
that's what made me rewatch the series is because I got the movie and watched that because that was years later. But
yeah,
I
and
love-
it wrapped the
what's that
story
guy
up
in,
too. It wrapped it up in a nice.
And I love Ian McShane. I love
Oh,
Lovejoy. That he was in an
he was
episode of Game of
fantastic.
Thrones because
Yeah.
he had to be because he's got to be in everything. He's got to be in
Yeah,
Doctor Who somewhere.
the guy from Newhart kind of got on my nerves after a while, and that other guy Steve after a while. But
Oh, have
They
there
were
been any
alright, I
shows
guess.
like have you been following, especially through COVID or like the last few years, where you actually made the effort to watch them or not?
watch what?
TV, like some kind of show where you actually took the time to watch
You
it.
know what? I like I said, I said to you, my wife is an avid television viewer, so I make agreements to watch programs with her. See, I'm using the old phraseology and stuff like that. Watching the programs with her, but otherwise, I got DVD. I still got the DVD sets, or actually Blu-ray of a lot of owning stuff. Which, by the way, I heard Dexter is out there again. Did you go through the Dexter series, or
What do you have something to say about this?
I was just about to say, please don't crucify me, but I'm excited that Dexter is back.
Yeah, I
have one thing to say about Dexter, and
It's,
I really
it's not.
liked
It's not going to be good. I know the new one isn't good. No, not what you're. This new one is probably not going to be good because the way it ended was terrible. But that was one of my favorite shows.
I heard it was okay. It was funny because one of my wife's former coworkers, who's now retired, she hasn't talked to him in like 2 years, but he texted her because she was the only one who talked to him at work about Dexter, and
Yeah.
he's streaming this thing on whatever he's doing with the new season and kind of giving the feedback on there. But I have one thing to say about Dexter, and I enjoyed it. I liked a lot of the guest stars they had on it, but season 2 season finale episode, I watched it once. I will never watch it again. It was so disturbing to me. It bothered me so much because I love that one character, and you know which character I'm talking about, right? The second season of the first series of Dexter.
I'm trying to
The
remember.
woman he
now,
was
'cause I know-
engaged to.
Oh God, yeah, that's right.
Why
yes,
can't I think?
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
want
they
to.
killed off so many people on that show, but yeah,
Oh, yeah,
no,
I'm trying to think of which one was. That was like.
Do you
the
remember
first,
that episode though? With the
I remember.
with John Lithgow and the bathtub and the
Yeah,
this and the that.
yeah.
That upset me so
What was her
much.
name? Was it Rita?
It was,
no, it wasn't
Rita.
Rita. Was it
I
Rita?
love
Rita,
that
it
character.
was,
She
yeah, his
such a
fiance,
beautiful
Rita.
doormat.
It was Rita.
She was a
Okay.
lovely doormat.
Yeah, Julie
Becca.
Benz, the actress.
Yeah, who was
I was-
Darla?
Who was
Buffy.
Darla on Buffy?
Buffy.
Yeah.
I was
That
actually just
guy would
talking.
go out and commit murder on a routine basis, and she was just the sweetest, nicest, and then that was disturbing. But actually, the way it was written too, like the way that reveal was at the end of that episode, it was it's very rare that something disturbs me that much
That's the
in
case
cinema,
too.
but that bothered me a lot.
When you can get involved in a series or TV and you realize the people are fictional, but I've used this example, I'm not making fun of people with it. I saw Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, when it came out. And we had to go, literally, it sold out. It was at Stone Ridge Plaza. So we had to get tickets for the next show. We went back, and Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, obviously Spock buys it. People were sobbing in the aisles. Now, my friend Mike, who's been on here, he said during Last Jedi at the end, he said people were
going on in
crying in the
space,
theater.
Yeah.
Because he had the radiation. He had the radiation.
Yeah.
Going down his face, the little bubble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a
I can't do
incredibly well done.
What do you mean you can't do that?
I was, and I always will be
Your
your friend.
Yeah, no, you can't not get choked up. No,
Oh.
it's,
Well, I was because we were watching that on reruns growing up because it was on TV, at 11 o'clock on the weekends and stuff so it was like, I was a junkie of the original series. But again, you talk about turning your nose up at stuff. I really had a hard time getting to anything Star Trek that did not involve the original cast. Now, don't get me wrong.
I can see
I
that.
kind of came around
I
the second
understand.
generation for some stuff. And then when they started bringing some big guns in here and there, it's like, all right, I'll look at it. I'm not going to like it as much as the original, but I'll tolerate it.
Yeah,
Star
no
Trek
promises.
has the most very passionate, divided fan base of just about any property, but I think,
Yeah.
I think ultimately Star Trek fans all like, I feel like there's more like kind of unity between Star Trek fans than there are like Latter-day Star Wars fans. It's got
Easily.
real upsetting.
Oh, yeah.
Because they at least all agreed that they respected the story and the concept, Gene Roddenberry, what he created, so they have their favorite versions of it. But I think at the end of the day, it's like, you can't not, at the very least tip your hat to what the original series accomplished,
So now I gotta do this, and you gotta forgive me because everybody from Binghamton does that, but you gotta know who our most famous son is, right?
Binghamton? I
Yeah.
don't know.
Rod
Who
Serling.
Oh, that's
Serling.
right. Oh no, how did I even forget that? Yes, Rod Serling.
I'm hoping to have his
Now, he was
daughter on here
born in
sometime.
Syracuse.
Talk about a genius. Oh my God.
He was born in Syracuse, but he was raised in Binghamton. As a matter of fact, I'll go a step further, and I grew up on the same side of town as he did. Obviously, a generation later. However, my grandparents owned a mom and pop store on the side of town that he grew up on, and my grandmother used to tell a story about, in those days they'd hire a babysitter, and they'd be watching your kids, but they'd have friends over down in the rec room anyway. You were just responsible for that kid. But if they're in the neighborhood, so the parents of this one family would leave, and the kids would be down playing in the rec room because my grandmother was older than Rod Serling, and she was the babysitter. And the parents of the house would leave, and they say, "Okay, well, do whatever, keep it on and whatever you do, don't let that Serling kid start telling any of his stories." Now, whether my grandmother was bullshit or not, don't let him start telling stories. So she'd be upstairs, whatever, letting the kids do what they want to do downstairs, and like there'd be the ruckus. Then all of a sudden it would get quiet, and she would sit at the top of the stairs, and he would tell the most outlandish stories, and he'd have all the kids captivated.
I just can picture a little guy, like a young kid, just sitting there going, "Consider if you will."
Now the other Rod Serling story I have is this. Because a lot of my family members were like in close proximity, because he graduated from Binghamton High School, so they were like on this side of him or that side of him. I think I had an aunt that might have been in his class or like a year behind him or something. But it's a small enough town where people get to it's like a I would call it a fishbowl, but it's more like an aquarium kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so I go into this bar, which my parents' mom and pop store was attached to the back of their house. And there was this bar, like a little neighborhood bar, like right across the street. And I'm in there one afternoon at a happy hour or whatever, and I'm talking to some guys. And my grandfather's name was Harry Lundberg. It was called Lundberg's Grocery. And they find out, you're Harry Lundberg. You're Harry Lundberg's grandson. Yeah, I am. Well, there was a West Junior High School was like 2 blocks from my grandparents' mom and pop store. And they told this story about they were going to West Junior, and the mom and pop store, they got your penny candy and all that kind of stuff. By the way, I'm going on the record here. My grandfather was the first guy to put a sign on the door of his store that said only 2 kids allowed in the store at a time. Okay. It's because of all the shoplifting, because they'd rob them blind. So these kids are running from West Junior, school gets out, and they come and they round the corner. And so it's like a little brick mom and pop store behind with the, plate glass windows and the, door that goes in like you see anywhere. And they kind of round the corner, around the gate to go to get their petty candy. And this is like in the early 60s. And standing right there, they said, was just like Rod Serling, just like smoking a butt, like he did. Not like that was their big story, but here are these grown ass men. These guys are probably in their at the time, maybe 10 years older than I. So, they're 60s, not probably in their 50s at the time. And they're just like little kids again, telling the story about how the day that they bumped into like Rod Serling.
We're hoping to have Ann Serling on here sometime, and I'll have to get you on to do some expert panel work.
Do you follow her? Did you friend her on Facebook or
anything?
Yeah,
I know her a little bit. I've met her up here and we've stayed in touch. And
really,
actually, after my dad passed away, I sent her a message about how her book about her dad helped me. Which was really
she responds? Because I have private messaged her a couple times. Because I sent her, I had some pictures of my, and I'll send you them after this, of my grandmother, like in front of the store, and my grandpa. My grandmother, by the way, died at her breakfast table at the age of 101 in St. Petersburg, Beach, Florida.
Holy
she
cow.
And my grandfather sold that store in the late 70s, and they bought a house in Florida. I think they paid cash for it. As a matter of fact, I think they were investigated by the FBI because they thought it was like dirty money from New York. Because there are some mob ties up here, and
more in Rochester than.
So she was investigated, but basically what happened, because they were Depression era people, she was squirreling money away back in the beer cooler, like a floorboard, up and like jamming cash down in there for like years. So I think they paid for their house in St. Pete Beach, Florida, in cash. So she dropped dead at the age of 101 at her breakfast table.
Wow.
These stories remind me of, I used to do community service at the age of like 14, 15.
Oh, so it wasn't court order? Was it court order?
No, definitely. That's why
he was just out of the kindness of his own heart.
That's why I throw the age out there. It was like school mandated, but like it wasn't like court mandated.
Yeah.
And I used to be a transporter, right? So I would take you from ICU or your room or to your room out to your cars and stuff like that. And every Saturday for like 4 hours, it was nothing but like, I don't want to say all elderly, but it was like 40 and up. They'd be in a wheelchair, and you'd start wheeling them, and they would all of a sudden just turn around and go, "Do you know who so-and-so is?" And I'd go, "No." And they would tell you the most insane stories of your life. And at the time, I wish I wrote down everyone's name, because I would have dirt on mafia people, sports people. This guy would go, "Do you know so-and-so, this famous lawyer from Rochester?" And I'd go, "No." "Oh, you see my knee? He did this to me." And I'm like, okay. And, at the time, I didn't appreciate it. But these stories remind me of the same thing. Your story about like, people running around a corner and then, whoa, there's somebody famous. I heard stories of like I forgot the mafia guys that used to run Rochester, but they'd be walking down I don't even know, let's say Main Street or something like that, and the kids would be riding their bikes, and all of a sudden they'd turn a corner and there was the two mobsters sitting there smoking a cigar, and they'd go, "Move along," and everyone would be like, "Oh," and these guys that I'm like pushing along are telling me about these mobsters and these famous people, and I used to date Marilyn Monroe, and I was like, "Okay, Grandpa." Like
the guy from down here, I think it's the guy from down here. His name was Gov Guarneri. I don't know if that name rings a bell. But and if you watch some of these movies, and you'll see it in some of the documentaries or whatever, but you know where Appalachian is? It's outside of Vestal. So you go through Binghamton and you take 17 out towards Elmira, and you head out in that direction. Well, back in, I think it was the late 50s, all the heads of the families decided to have a meeting up there. And so, here you got the small town, and all these big cars are coming in with, and the state police are like, "Gee, I wonder what's going on up there." You ever see this in any of the movies? It's called some of the mob stuff where they're all jumping out of windows and trying to get the hell out of there. Yeah. That was Appalachian, which is like, my brother bought a house in Appalachian over here. So
that's small, right?
They'd always like go out to kind of, semi-remote places. These big meetings, but they always had to go, their big cars with a million people. These big. But
you also got to understand, a lot of these, boom towns in New York State, were pretty well populated with these guys. As a matter of fact, the area known around here is Endicott. And I dated a couple of Italian girls from Endicott. I went to Catholic school. I went to the big dinner with all the fishes and all that kind of stuff that they do and all that. And speaking of fish, I was getting the fisheye from the uncle over in the corner. It was like the Malloy, because I'm not, I wasn't. It was eerie,
Yeah, we had him actually. There was a party
standing up on the back of my neck.
Party at the Diplomat. My friend Rob's stag party.
Oh,
It turned out there was a mob party downstairs, and they're playing like the card games for like $100 a hand. A couple of them came in and they had like raffle things. He came up. One of the mobsters came up to like somebody at the party. They wanted TV, and he goes, "I'm giving you $800 for this TV." It was probably like a $200 TV. Are you going to say no, even if you want it?
Nope.
Well, you know what? I could tell a few more stories like that, but I'm going to take the fifth.
Yeah, there's. I got stories I can't say.
I'll tell you. It's like it was one of those things. It was just a different time. It was a different era and things like that. I mean, I went to a local Catholic school. I know a few things, but you know what? I don't want to.
I could say the same thing here. I went to a Catholic school, very Italian area.
Well, yeah, right. And it's like, hey, whatever. It's what it is.
One video I'll ask is coming up. I have to ask the big question: are you for Christmas movies or not? They're coming.
Well, you know what? I run into the bedroom the other day, and my wife's watching "It's a Wonderful Life," which, by the way, I was in the musical version of "It's a Wonderful Life," and I played Uncle Billy.
I think I was in a Reader's Theater version of it, and I also played Uncle Billy.
Luke has not been in one. We have not been.
All right, well,
but as far as that goes,
a band called Uncle Billy's.
It's tough. At Christmas, it depends on the Christmas movie, I guess. I don't want to.
Any thoughts, Luke?
But I'm also married, and my wife watches the Hallmark Channel.
Honestly, all Christmas Day, we just have on A Christmas Story in the background. I mean, I don't mind. I don't know when they're on, or I don't seek them.
Well, Liz, every year I always talk to Liz about watching Love Actually. We always watch that. But I found one a couple of years ago. You have to see called Last Christmas, which I think is a step above a lot of these, and I think you'll really like it.
Last Christmas.
Are you a Christmas movie guy?
Not really, but that one
pretty
really
much just me. That one.
That one, and actually Love Actually and A Christmas Story.
Yeah.
Remind me who's in Love Actually, because some of these
all the British people.
Every British person you could think about
who was big in the late 90s.
Oh, okay, that's not a bad.
Liz used to say it. Liz used to say I was Andrew Lincoln's. Liz always used to say I was the scene with Keira Knightley and Andrew Lincoln. She said that's me. He's probably right.
It's Hugh Grant in it. That's what I want to know.
Though, right? Isn't he just
a little bit? I was like, Liz, it's a little bit kind of.
That's one of those movies that has not aged well.
But she said in a way, in a good way.
I like I like the Martin Freeman scenes where they were the porno stand-ins. I wish there was more of that. That was just a great concept.
I don't know if I've ever seen the movie. I mean, I've heard of it, obviously, but I don't think I've ever seen it.
I couldn't name more than two. I couldn't name one person in it. I know I've seen it. It's not bad.
Was Hugh Grant in it? I didn't hear that part. Was he in it?
I tried Googling it, and my internet's a little wonky right now.
Everybody British. Was
Liam Neeson,
Alan Rickman, Hugh Grant,
Emma Thompson,
No.
Atkinson makes a cameo.
Yeah. Hugh Grant.
Actually, Hugh Grant filmed a movie in Binghamton and I forget what it was. It was called The Rewrite, I think is what the movie was called. You can actually get it at the Speedy and Rib Pit down on Front Street, I think.
Of course you can.
But it was about, because it was, whatever the story was, it was about a writer who happened to be going to Binghamton University, and I don't even think they filmed the campus.
What I've also heard, this was like some years ago, Rocky Horror. A friend of mine said he went to one in Binghamton, and he said they finally did Rocky Horror right again, because up here we would go to them at RIT. RIT would let us throw rice. We could do half the stuff. And he said the one in Binghamton was like the old days. He loved it. This was some time ago, pre-COVID, obviously.
No, that's because you're near the border. Anytime you get near any border, it gets kind of wacky. You know what I'm talking about.
Some of my theater snob friends and myself would often give people shit about Rocky Horror. It's like, oh, that's for like theater for folks who don't do theater. I was just like, oh, it's just so mean. It's a mean thing to say. And I always felt
Ouch.
bad about how much shit we would give Rocky Horror people. Because everybody should not feel bad about their thing, But
No,
snobby about it.
it's weird because I'm kind of a strange breed because I like, especially when it comes to community theater, because you know how it is. Like some people are just like, that's what they do. And for a number of years I did it. And actually I started to slow down after 9/11, to be honest with you, because we did Guys and Dolls. And I actually did it at the Helen Foley Theater. Helen Foley was Rod Serling's English teacher. And I played Nathan Detroit in Guys and Dolls. And at the time, I was thinking about getting my master's in fine arts because I just was doing show after show after show. And I'm like, I think this is what I want to do. And of course, I took a non-matriculated course at Binghamton University on like the history of theater. And it was like, the topics were shit like mumming in the Middle Ages and shit that. I'm like, this is interesting and stuff. This isn't what I want to do. Well, I have to
theater history is that was the thing that would break people who wanted to be theater majors.
And that was the first class
they enjoyed theater. They'd be like, I don't want to.
Yeah,
I was like to be Sky Masterson too. I've always liked that character better.
I got.
Nathan Detroit was one of my faves of all time, man.
So anyway, actually for us, I think one of the things we could have done, even you see so many different characters working at bars. We could have done like a show just on the people we met.
Yeah.
No, I used to.
That's the thing. If you'll allow me, I got a little bit of a story to tell you.
Yes, absolutely.
It focuses around 9/11. So I just wrap up this show, and honest to God, like I have the newspaper clipping because I appeared in the Binghamton Press in the Good Times section. It was me and Adelaide, right? And we closed that show on Sunday, which was the 9th of September.
Mm-hmm.
And then the following Tuesday, I was in that class when the planes hit the tower.
Oh, wow.
And you got to understand, there are a lot of people from the city that attend Binghamton University. And it was a very surreal experience. Now, I was working at the time, but, I got out of work to just go and take the class. And I headed back to work after that. But just that feeling on the campus of everybody scrambling around. I mean, some of these kids and all that. And so I was like, after that initial shock and stuff like that, it's like, I don't want to take freaking mumming in the Middle Ages. What I really want to do is kind of see what it would be like to work in the theater. And so I went down to Manhattan in October, this acting studio. I forget what it was called. And I signed up for some classes and they did some like minor little meet and greet auditions with like, they had somebody from film, they had somebody from television, they had somebody from theater or whatever. And I in hindsight, I would have chosen different monologues to use, but that's neither here nor there. Mm-hmm. And so I signed up for that in October. So that's a month after 9/11. And then I went down in March for a week and I lived in this little room that was in an old, it's like almost like a hostel for like the secretarial pool. Mm-hmm. Like you have a shared bathroom and you have like a bed and a sink and a couple of closets. And, it was like maybe $60 and it was dirt cheap. And I would walk to the studio every day and just kind of see what that was like and have that experience. And I was also working at Catholic Charities here in town at the time, working like social work kind of position. And so I kind of, is this what I want to do? And it was fun. It was cool. And during the course of that week, I went down, I had some time off. So I actually went down to Ground Zero and got a ticket and went to actually go up on the viewing platform. And that day they pulled out like 14 bodies that day. And I looked down into that pit, and so I'm doing this auditioning and all that other kind of stuff. And I'm meeting these people and they're nice and they're actors and all that stuff. But then I went back and I was working for like a not-for-profit at the time. And I'm like, all right, I don't think I want to do that for a living, because there was always this burning question up until that point is like, am I just, I would really like to make a living doing this stuff. But that was like the period in time in life where it's like, okay, I'll still do this stuff, but that's not what I think.
Yeah, it's the kind of the choice you got to make at certain points. And I often ask myself, because I was a theater major and but I was just like, I never really went for it. And now I'm doing kind of at this later point in my life trying to do more my own stuff and see if I can't make a go of it. You know?
Yeah, Luke, did you have anything you want to say that
Yeah.
do you have anything to say that we sort of interrupted you with?
No.
No, not at all. I just I got that out there, and interesting, Patrick, to hear what you have to say, but because because I think it is a choice, but it's like, and I think I said it earlier to Luke, is that it's the difference between a vocation and an avocation. Because I'm finding it's still an avocation, but it never kind of leaves you. And once I kind of gave up the ghost on that, it's really kind of interesting because I never completely got out of it. I think that show I did where I played the voice of the plant in Little Shop of Horrors, which was fantastic because I didn't have to even appear on stage.
Yeah, you just
That's pretty cool.
No, everyone, and I've worked with a lot of the different people in the companies around here in town, and it's but it's like one of those things because I think what triggered this story was, Patrick, you said something about people dissing your kind of thing. I always liked theater. I always liked music and all that kind of stuff. But all my friends were in sports. I played sports up until 8th grade, but I was like a middle of the pines kind of guy.
Yeah.
And then I hit high school. I was like, hey, wait a minute, I could actually carry the ball over here.
Once you realize you're not going to be cream of the crop in something, you can just pivot and just go towards something else that you might be better at.
But the beautiful thing about community theater is, and what's the old adage? You've heard it a million times. There are no such thing as small parts. Yeah. Only small actors. But that goes for anybody who produces anything and has an appreciation for what other people do. Yeah. We were talking about me being all thumbs with techie stuff over here, whereas I bet Luke could teach me a million things that I don't know about how to put something together.
No.
Well, maybe two.
No, I don't know anything.
You'd be wrong. I still forget to unmute myself when I talk on meetings, and honestly, I know that's minor. But I mean, even just crypto stuff blows my mind. But
guys your age are ahead of the game because you grew up with computers. You got to remember the fact that when I graduated college in 1990. One of my final term papers in what was it, my news writing and reporting class was done in DOS.
Yeah. I came up, there was a split where I used to know everything. I could hook up your car stereo. I could hook up, your VCRs and your whatevers. And then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened in technology. I think it was when we went from HDMI. It was the beginning of HDMI. All of a sudden, it was I couldn't fix a computer anymore. I have no idea, even some new cars, when some of those the fuses blow, I'm lost. And it's strange. I feel very out of touch, even though, my parents.
It's an aha moment. You know why? Because you're still Generation X, aren't you? Technically.
Is it? Yeah, I guess so.
I want a ruling on this, boys.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the cutoff is probably right.
I think
this has been really good, and we have to do this again because we rolled a long time already, and we just hitting this beginning.
No, I think people
started, like us, there's some people, they get their job at 18, they retire if they don't get kicked out of it at 65. We do all kinds of different things and experience different things, and everybody, whatever their life takes them, and they enjoy it and they have fun.
Yeah.
I'm glad my life was just not normal like that.
I will disclose this fact, okay? I just left a job for another job back in March, and this past job I did for 15 years. And I actually had been promoted before I left, but I decided I was going to try something else. You know what I did? Any guesses?
No.
I was a probation officer for 15 years.
Do you know when I was when I was bartending in Rochester, a lot of COs and POs used to come by and drink, and they would try to recruit me, and I don't know why. They all wanted me to do that, and I don't have a clue.
I'll tell you what. Well, it's interesting. It's interesting. Well, because that just opens up another layer of possible conversation here. Because you're talking the interactions you have and how these.
We'll save that. Yeah,
we're going to have to have a part two.
We'll continue this.
We'll continue. But Luke, I know you'll be back. Buck, great to have you on. Great to see you, my friend. You'll come back, won't you?
Oh, absolutely.
If any other-
No question.
What's playing now this week? Alyssa and Adriana are in town here. Alyssa's at the B-side at Nashville. I'm going to see her, and Adriana's playing at Love and Cup on Friday. Now you're playing coming up Turkey. This is coming out Monday. You said you have a show.
Where's the show?
Your Park Avenue Revue. Or don't you have a show coming up this week?
Oh yeah, no, this is great. This is we've been doing this for years, and this goes back now. My previous band was called Dr. Cole and Marcus, and it's not anything creative, but there were three of us when we started, and the one guy was a doctor, the other guy's name was Colin, and my name is Mark, and I just thought to make it fancy with Marcus.
That's pretty cool.
But then the doctor ended up falling by the wayside, but we kept the moniker. And then when that band broke up, because we played at Nips, and I couldn't think of a name where I'm again not being particularly creative, came up with the name the Park Ave Revue because Nips is on Park Avenue in Binghamton. But we do this fundraiser every year, and it started years ago, and it's for Chow. We raise money for the Chow pantries, and it's a Black Friday thing, alternative to shopping. Mm-hmm. A lady by the name of Linda Cheeseman started it years ago. And it started out, and it was just me, and it was just Dr. Cole and Marcus playing it. But then when the band broke up, it was like, okay, who's going to do it this year? And I think I had a show that I had to do that year, so I couldn't do it. So my brother-in-law reached out to, because he's friends with the guy who owns Thirsties down here, reached out to this other guy who ended up
here.
Yeah. I was gonna mention that. And Thirsties has been there since like the 70s, and the same guy owns it. And so basically, what we do is it starts at 2:00 on Black Friday. We're the opening act, but so they brought in another band. So there's these guys that are called the O'Neill Brothers, and they go back to I think the oldest brother is like 70 now, and they go back. Do you ever hear of the Rooney Fest? There was this thing called the Rooney Fest years ago. It's like a lot of, but anyway, these guys play. It's almost a bluegrassy kind of thing, but they do some country standards, and they had a tremendous following down here, and like Crazy Stories, all that. So the O'Neill brothers are the second act playing. And then there's a band called Straight Up, and they've got a horn, and they've got these fellas that they got an outstanding keyboard player, lead guitarist, and all that. And so we each take an hour slot. We do 50-50 raffles, and it's tradition. And I think our best year so far, I think we might have hit the $2,500 mark one year, and it just goes to the local food pantry.
Very cool. Thanks, Levin.
That is cool.
That anybody want to end on anything?
Nope. See you next time.
But
hey,
something
you want a song?
Yeah, we'll end with the song. Here is Mark playing a song. What is this? Just say a little bit about it, play it, and we'll end.
We're going to talk this one through because I never play my original songs. But when I was playing with Dr. Cole and Marcus, we did some CDs, and I got to say, Colin did the bulk. He did the lion's share of the work. I mean, even sometimes I wasn't even laying any of the tracks down because he was laying so many tracks down. It's like, you don't need another acoustic guitar in there. It's good enough. So I just lay down the vocals. But there was and then for my tunes, I'd lay down like a rhythm track and the vocal, and then I'd put give the digital recorder back to him, and he'd fill out the rest of the parts. And I felt really bad because of all this, and we, all our friends and people who came follow us would get the CDs. And there was only one song they ever requested, and it was this song. And it's because of the fact that it's about them. Because the name of the song is actually Nips. Nips Park Ave Saloon is what it's called.
Excellent.
And
not like 20 minutes, is it?
Not 20 minutes. Why? How are we doing timeline?
No, we don't have a timeline, but it's not like 20 minutes.
No, but it tells a story that I think some moonlighting musicians can relate to.
Oh.
It's good to see you again. How's the wife, the kids? How's man's best friend? It's always good to see you, my friend. Here we go again. Take your coat off and grab yourself a beer. It's time for me to do my thing. I'm glad you're here. You know it's always crazy at this time of year. So glad you're here at Nips Park Ave Saloon, where we sing our tunes. I know somebody over there's been drinking since noon at Nips Park Ave Saloon. The bar is getting busy and the girls are working hard. And Colin just popped a G-string on his guitar. Neither one of us thought we'd take it this far here in this bar. Someone's getting crazy just this side of out of hand. 3 deep at the bar, people have to stand. Ah, shit, they want to hear Southern Cross again. Here we go again at Nips Park Ave Saloon, where we sing our tunes. 2 young lovers in the corner, see how they swoon at Nips Park Ave Saloon. Here we go now. Colin's got his G-string on, quick draws on the 2. And I think somebody over there just flashed their boobs. I know some people might think that's rude. I don't think we do. Early, late, and it's time to go. We hope that everybody enjoyed the show. That's all that we got, and there ain't no more. Sorry, gotta go. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't do what we do. It's kind of like how my foot fits inside my shoe. You know it's a lot of fun to sing for you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Park Ave Saloon. Come back real soon. And while you're at it, help me sing this tune. Come on, your turn now. Lips Park Ave Saloon. Lips Park Ave Saloon. Come back real soon. While you're at it, help me sing this tune. Park Ave Saloon. Park Ave Saloon.
Bravo.
Yay. Yay, and we're out.
Nice.